So, powerful men are escalating in the world, and the rest of us are expected to absorb the anxiety. Well, today, I'm opting out. So, welcome to Women on the Brink. Okay, so today I want to talk about radical responsibility. It's kind of a buzzword amongst the Gen X and the millennials. We don't we talk a little bit about it on Women on the Brink. But let's face it, this is a very timely topic. The news headlines lately read like a group chat between emotionally reactive world leaders, right? Wars are escalating, threats are flying, strongman politics are posturing like it's a high school locker room. So it's easy to feel small, it's very easy to feel powerless, and it's easy to start spiraling. So, starting today, I'm going to make an effort to stop worrying about geopolitics and steer the course of my own life, which is all I can control anyway. So, let's name the energy out there. We're living in a time where political leaders escalate instead of regulate. Their ego is louder than diplomacy, and power is confused with domination. And some of us have experienced the same dynamic in relationships and jobs or family drama. It's reactive, it's threat-based, it's control-oriented, and it's all about pride over repair. And it's not just geopolitical, it's human nervous systems playing out on a global scale. And here's where my radical responsibility needs to come in. So, in this context, radical responsibility means I'm responsible for how much news I consume, or how I regulate when fear spikes, and what conversations I engage in, and where I place my own energy, and how I treat people in my own sphere. Because I can't control nuclear strategy, but I can control whether I spiral at 6 p.m. watching the news. And that's the power that I do have right now. So let's just add a little feminine twist here. As we've acknowledged before, women have been conditioned for generations to take responsibility for men's behavior, for their moods, for their anger, for their reputation, for keeping the peace. Sound familiar? So, if we zoom that lens out a little bit to a bigger global scale, powerful men escalate tensions and they expect the population to absorb the anxiety that they've created. It's exactly the same pattern. Radical responsibility from a feminist lens says, I won't internalize chaos I didn't create, but I will steward my energy with strength. So, during these past couple of weeks when tension spikes, I really feel it in my body. Like my chest tightens and my mind starts catastrophizing. That's an old pattern of mine. And I'm reminded of this feeling because it's familiar. I went through this during the COVID-19 epidemic where I used to, doom scroll and ruminate and try to predict outcomes and over consume information as a form of control. But now I notice and I regulate first and I ask, is consuming more info increasing my agency or is it increasing my cortisol levels? Because the most radical thing that I can do is close the laptop or change the channel on the TV. Because that's not really being ignorant, it's just having sovereignty. Because, let's face it, there's a difference between being informed and being inflamed. Radical responsibility means staying informed without letting global instability hijack your internal stability. Because here's the truth. A dysregulated population is easier to manipulate. Calm, clear, regulated people, way harder to control. So tending to my nervous system is not apolitical. So when these world events start to flare up, I ask myself, what is mine here? What can I do? I can support humanitarian efforts, have nuanced conversations, model calm leadership in my own life with my family and those around me. And it's not, arguing with strangers online or catastrophizing or projecting fear onto other people. So it doesn't mean that I stop caring or that I'm just focusing on myself or I'm trying to ignore everything. I mean, there's a big difference. I still feel compassion, but I'm not being consumed and I'm aware without being destabilized. And I acknowledge that this global dysfunction, I don't have to reenact it in my own nervous system. So instead of matching aggression with aggression, I'm actually creating more regulation and discernment and boundaries and clear thinking. So, in a world performing power really loudly at the moment, calm authority is profoundly disruptive. Radical responsibility in this geopolitical moment means I'm not going to let chaos dictate my inner state, right? I won't absorb what isn't mine, and I will take full ownership of how I move through the world, with the conversations I have and looking after my nervous system and being really mindful of my choices and who's in my sphere of influence because the world is loud, but I don't have to be internally chaotic. And I mean, let's be real. There's going to be uncertainty, but I think we need to acknowledge that discomfort is just a part of life, and our sovereignty doesn't mean avoiding it. So, I was listening to a really interesting podcast this week called The Spirituality Debate, and the guest, Elizabeth April, she suggests that we start getting ourselves comfortable with living with uncertainty. And that's by training our nervous system to be okay with making mistakes, by doing things that take us out of our comfort zones. And I thought, you know what? I think I've really been attempting to do this for the past couple of years without really naming it. So for me, it's, going back to university in my 60s, and I just enrolled in my 2 classes today. Yippee, I'm in. And I started this podcast, and that has really taken me big time out of my comfort zone. I've been mentoring youth and trying new foods, hiking new trails, and I'm actually even growing a type of garden I've never planted before. So some of these are big things, some of these are small, but each stretch, no matter the size of it, just tells my brain I can handle not knowing the outcome, I can handle discomfort, and I can align with a higher vibration while, the world fumbles around me. So, in closing, the world's going to be screaming and leaders are going to be throwing tantrums and headlines might make your chest tighten like it does mine. But you know what? We can close the laptop, we can take a deep breath and step forward anyway, steady and sovereign and even full of curiosity. Radical responsibility is being informed without being inflamed and tolerating that discomfort without collapsing. And and really owning our choices, our energy and our boundaries. In a world run by unregulated nervous systems, let's face it, I think staying calm and stepping into this discomfort really commands our inner authority. And that's, for me, a little sign of rebellion and power. And yes, it's way, way cooler than spiraling like I used to.